subtraction for today, well, remember yesterday I had, for addition, I told you guys line up the decimal point. The same thing for subtraction. Line up the decimal point. So for number 1, let me line this thing up as 5.59 minus 5.1. Once again, make sure the decimal point is lined up. If the numbers are not the same length, we can always add a 0 to one of them to make them the same length, and then just subtract numbers the way you know how to subtract. 9 minus 0 is 9, 5 minus 1 is 4, and 5 minus 5 is 0. So my answer is 0.49. Like that's it. The 0 before the decimal, we usually do write it, but it's a personal choice. What I mean with that is, instead of 0.49, you guys just write 0.49. You guys don't write the 0 before it. That's not incorrect. Like that's okay. The 0 before the decimal, it's a personal choice. Looking at question number 2, I have 7.9 minus 7.3. Once again, make sure the decimal point is lined up, and then subtract the way we know. 9 minus 3 is 6. 7 minus 7 is 0. So my answer is 0.6. When we do take a look, when we have to borrow some of it, like question number 3, when we do 6.1 minus 3.3, we have to do some borrowing here, because 1 minus 3 I can't do, so I want it smaller. So from the 6, I'm going to borrow 1, so obviously that becomes 5. And the 1 I'm going to borrow, I'm going to put it right there at the side. So that looks like 11 minus 3, which is 8. 5 minus 3 is 2. So my answer is 2.8. If I look at question number 4, I have 4.4 minus 0.65. On the top number, I'm going to add an extra 0, so that way they're the same length. I know 0 minus 5 I cannot do, so the 4 I'm going to borrow 1, so that becomes a 3. And the 1 I'm borrowing is there. So it looks like 10 minus 5, which is 5. 3 minus 6 I cannot do, so I'm going to borrow 1 from here. So it looks like 13 minus 6, which is 7. And then 3 minus 0 is 3. For subtraction, obviously we always keep the sign of the large one. And then for today, since the first time we're looking at this, I made sure the bigger number was top. And I made sure the first number was the biggest one. But whenever we write it, again, we write the big number on top, the small number at the bottom, that way we can subtract it and keep the sign of the large one. Like I said, for today, to make it simple, I made sure the big number was at the very beginning, and I made sure the big number was positive, just to make it simple. But for tomorrow, I might switch it a little. Any questions? 9? Right, let's take a look at number 9. I have 8 minus 5.8. Remember that yesterday I mentioned that if it had no decimal, I'm gonna assume the decimals at the end. So I'm looking at that as 8.0. So I can make sure the decimals lined up. From the 8, let me borrow 1. So 10 minus 8 is 2, and 7 minus 5 is 2, so 2.2. Good question on that one. Make sure if it doesn't have a decimal, assume it's at the end. So that's why that one became 8.0. Any other questions?